on Ja Rule.
He would have got it like everybody else. He stayed clear of that motherfucker.
If Jay-Z would have jumped on the track with Ja, you would have went at Jay? Honestly,
Who do you think Jay-Z is? This is crazy. Look, there ain't no...
This time, it wasn't a drive-by joke. It wasn't a one-liner tossed into the algorithm and forgotten. This time, 50 Cent doubled down. And when he did, the spotlight didn't just swing toward Jay. It snapped into place like it had been waiting there the whole time. Because when 50 starts asking questions about $8 million and starts hinting at an industry reckoning, the internet doesn't hear trolling. It hears timing. It hears intention. It hears the sound of old conversations being dragged back out of storage and placed right on the table, where nobody wanted them. This wasn't loud chaos. This was controlled pressure. The kind that makes people revisit headlines they skipped, rewatch interviews they forgot, and suddenly wonder why certain questions never seem to go away. Jay-Z has spent decades floating above the noise, billionaire status, legacy branding, cultural architect energy. But even legends feel gravity when the ground starts shifting. Memes dropped. Think pieces followed. And fans started asking the most dangerous question of all: why now? Because when the internet smells money, power, and silence in the same room, curiosity turns feral. And whatever this is turning into, it's already bigger than one post. This didn't feel like a coincidence. It felt like a return. When 50 Cent doubled down on questions surrounding an alleged $8 million situation tied to Jay-Z, the internet didn't treat it like trolling. It treated it like a reminder. A reopening of a conversation people assumed had been permanently archived under too powerful to touch. Because 50 doesn't repeat himself unless he wants the echo to get louder. The first time, people laughed it off.
Classic 50, stirring the pot.
Throwing shade for engagement. But the second time? That's when tone matters. Doubling down signals intention. It tells the audience this isn't just for jokes. This is pressure. And pressure is where narratives start cracking. Jay-Z exists in a category most artists never reach. Billionaire mogul. Cultural blueprint. A man whose silence has historically been louder than most people's statements. He doesn't respond to internet chatter because he doesn't have to. That distance has always been part of the brand. Untouchable. Elevated. Above. The noise, which is exactly why this moment landed so hard. The alleged $8 million figure instantly became the focal point of the conversation. Not because it was new information, but because money gives rumors a backbone. Numbers make speculation feel official. Once a dollar amount enters the chat, the internet stops treating the story like gossip and starts treating it like business, deals, decisions, power, and once business enters the narrative, people get uncomfortable. What made the situation even messier was how it was framed. No direct accusation. No clear allegation. Just pointed questions, vague references, and a tone that suggested unfinished business. Why does this keep coming up? Funny how some conversations never disappear. Interesting who never has to answer. Those aren't statements. They're invitations. And the internet accepted the invitation immediately. Timelines filled with resurfaced interviews. Lyrics were replayed with new ears. Old headlines got re-examined like evidence files. Fans stitched together timelines that may or may not belong together, but logic wasn't the goal. Momentum was. And momentum doesn't wait for confirmation. Some people dismissed it right away, saying this was nothing more than strategic provocation. Hip-hop theater. Long-standing rivalry dressed up for modern platforms. They argued that 50 Cent thrives on chaos and that Jay-Z was simply the latest target because legends generate clicks. Others weren't so quick to brush it off. They pointed out that 50 doesn't usually poke without a reason.
He waits, he watches.
He chooses moments when narratives feel vulnerable. He doesn't swing at people on the way down. He swings upward. And when he does, it's rarely accidental. Jay-Z's silence became part of the story almost instantly. Silence can signal confidence when the noise is small. But when the noise grows loud enough, silence starts to look like strategy. Not guilt strategy. And strategy invites interpretation. People started asking why Jay-Z never addresses these conversations. Why certain topics never get cleared up, only ignored. Why some figures are scrutinized endlessly while others remain untouched. And once those questions surface, they don't go back underground quietly, the alleged disturbing claims being referenced. Alongside the financial questions added another layer of tension. Again, nothing detailed. Nothing explicit. Just enough allusion to older industry whispers that people thought had been buried under time, money, and influence. The internet has a long memory, and vague reminders are often more powerful than specifics, because specifics can be challenged. Implication just lingers. Defenders moved quickly. They called the moment irresponsible, reckless, and dangerous. They argued that repeating unproven claims, even indirectly, creates damage without accountability. They reminded everyone that power does not equal wrongdoing and that implication without evidence is still harmful, but opposition didn't. Slow. Others countered that conversations like this don't keep resurfacing without reason. They said history shows that power delays accountability. It doesn't eliminate it. They argued that silence works until it doesn't, and that ignoring narratives doesn't erase them. It lets them grow in the dark. Reaction channels jumped in immediately. Some cautious, stacking disclaimers every few seconds. Others reckless, leaning fully into shock value. Every reaction fed the algorithm, and the algorithm fed the controversy. Memes followed, because humor always arrives when discomfort gets too heavy to sit with jokes about billionaires. Being allergic to questions circulated. Sarcastic posts about silence being the most expensive PR strategy money can buy. Comparisons to past industry reckonings popped up, not because they were identical, but because the internet loves patterns. Even unrelated celebrities caught stray speculation simply because proximity now felt suspicious. Distance became evidence. Silence became narrative. The internet flattened complexity into digestible storylines. Because nuance doesn't travel fast, what amplified everything was the lack of resolution. No denial, no clarification, no attempt to shut the conversation down. Just a vacuum filled by speculation. And in the digital age, speculation becomes reality faster than truth ever could. The conversation widened quickly. This stopped being about one alleged financial situation and turned into a broader critique of how celebrity power functions. Who answers questions? Who never has to? How wealth reshapes accountability? Why certain stories fade while others explode? Jay-Z's legacy didn't collapse in this moment, but it shifted. People weren't canceling him. They were rewatching him, re-listening, re-evaluating, and that subtle change matters more than outrage. Outrage burns fast. Reconsideration sticks. This wasn't a scandal with receipts yet. It was a recalibration. A reminder that even the most protected figures aren't immune to narrative pressure. When someone with reach decides to push, the spotlight didn't explode onto J-Z. It slid there. Quietly. And once the spotlight moves upward, it rarely goes back to where it came from. Once the questions were back on the table, the internet stopped pretending this was casual. It shifted gears from curiosity to full-on analysis. The kind where everyone suddenly becomes an expert because they watched 3 clips and read a caption twice. The conversation wasn't just louder now. It was organized chaos. Threads multiplied. Videos stacked. Timelines looked like crime boards built entirely out of screenshots and vibes. The alleged $8 million figure kept anchoring everything. Not because anyone had fresh documents, but because numbers feel official. Numbers sound accountable. Numbers make speculation feel like math instead of imagination. And once math enters the room, people start acting like there's a solution waiting to be solved. If they just connect enough dots. Memes did what they always do when tension gets uncomfortable. They turned suspicion into punchlines. Jokes about billionaires playing hide-and-seek with accountability. Sarcastic captions about silence being the most expensive PR strategy money can buy. Edits comparing the situation to past industry reckonings. Set to dramatic music and delivered with just enough irony to feel bold without committing to facts. Humor wasn't dismissing the issue. It was keeping it alive. Reaction channels piled in. each one louder than the last. Some wrapped themselves in disclaimers, repeating allegedly like a life vest while still leaning hard into suspense. Others skipped caution entirely, treating the conversation like an open audition for outrage. Neutrality vanished because neutrality doesn't trend. Curiosity does. Suspicion does. And outrage, when packaged as concern, does the best of all. Jay-Z's continued silence became a character in the story. People argued over what it meant, not because anyone knew, but because meaning fills space. To some, the silence looked like confidence, the posture of someone too elevated to respond to internet noise. To others, it felt calculated, a waiting game designed to let attention burn itself out. Both readings thrived side by side, and the longer the quiet stretched, the more interpretations piled on. That's when the disturbing claims being referenced earlier started hovering again. Still undefined. Still unconfirmed. Still powerful. They didn't need to be repeated loudly. They lingered in the background like a low note that never resolves. People debated whether implication without specifics was more dangerous than direct accusation. One side said implication poisons reputations without accountability. The other said implication exists because direct statements aren't always possible in systems built to protect power. Neither side slowed the spread. Public figures danced around the topic with carefully vague posts about truth, timing, and the industry not being ready. Those captions didn't clarify anything, but they didn't need to. They suggested alignment without commitment, and that suggestion was enough to keep engagement humming. The internet treats cryptic posts like breadcrumbs, even when they lead nowhere. Then came retroactive suspicion. Old photos were re-examined. Past collaborations were re-timelined. Gaps in public appearances became suspicious. Proximity was treated like guilt, and distance was treated like confirmation. The internet flattened complexity into digestible narratives because complexity takes time, and time doesn't trend. The alleged $8 million situation morphed into a symbol. It stopped being a detail and became shorthand for larger questions about deals, influence, and who answers when power is involved. Whether the number itself was accurate mattered less than what it represented. Money, secrecy, leverage. The idea that certain conversations only resurface when someone with enough reach decides to push them back into view. 0.50 cent didn't escalate the way many expected. No follow-up rant. No detailed explanation. He let the moment breathe. That restraint read as confidence to some and manipulation to others. Either way, it worked. The less he said, the more people talked. When the originator steps back and the narrative keeps moving, that's when a moment crosses from trolling into impact. Industry behavior started shifting quietly. Not with statements, but with distance. Fewer interactions. Less visible alignment. Carefully neutral posts. In celebrity ecosystems, proximity is currency and controversy devalues it instantly. The internet noticed every unfollow, every absence, every silence, treating each as evidence even when it wasn't. Fatigue crept in. But not boredom, unease. The jokes still landed, but heavier. The memes still spread, but with an edge. Viewers weren't asking what was next as much as they were asking where this was going. Because speculation doesn't end cleanly. It either burns out or hardens into belief. And belief is sticky. Jay-Z's legacy didn't collapse here. It reframed. Fans who once brushed off any criticism now said, "I'm not saying it's true, but..." That phrase alone is enough to change perception. Doubt doesn't need confirmation to do damage. It just needs space. The conversation widened again, beyond individuals and into systems. Who gets shielded? Who gets scrutinized? Why some stories get buried while others explode? Why silence works until it doesn't? This stopped being about one figure and turned into a referendum on how celebrity power actually functions behind the scenes. And that's when people realize something uncomfortable. There wouldn't be a neat ending. No statement tying everything together. No dramatic reveal that confirmed or denied everything at once. Just a lingering question mark that attaches itself to future interviews, future headlines, future moments where the spotlight wanders back. The internet doesn't need answers to stay engaged. It needs anticipation. And anticipation was everywhere. Because when stories reach this phase, they don't resolve. They wait. They settle into background noise, ready to resurface the next time a similar question gets asked. Every new appearance becomes a potential trigger. Every silence becomes interprda. BL by the time the volume dipped from a roar into a constant, low-grade hum, the real damage had already settled. Not the kind that announces itself with headlines and press conferences, but the kind that quietly rewires how people are perceived. In the modern spotlight, you don't need a verdict to change a narrative. You need repetition. And this story had repeated itself just enough times to become a filter people now use when they watch. Jay-Z still didn't respond. That silence by now had its own gravity. To some, it looked like confidence, the posture of someone who's seen storms come and go and knows the weather always changes. To others, it felt like calculation, letting the moment cool rather than feeding it with oxygen. Neither interpretation could be confirmed, and that was the point. Ambiguity is where speculation lives longest. The alleged $8 million question stopped functioning as a detail and became a symbol. It represented bigger conversations about business, leverage, and who answers when power is involved. Whether the number was precise mattered less than what it stood for. Money, secrecy, influence. Once those ideas get attached to a name, they don't detach easily. What changed most wasn't outrage. It was posture. Fans weren't canceling. They weren't chanting. They were rewatching, re-listening, rereading. Outrage burns hot and fast. Reconsideration lingers. The shift was subtle but meaningful. People started saying, "I'm not saying anything happened, but..." And that sentence alone can tilt a legacy. Doubt doesn't need proof to exist. It just needs room. 50 Cent's role clarified with distance. He didn't need to keep poking. He'd already redirected attention, and attention has momentum of its own. Critics argued whether that was irresponsible or strategic. Supporters argued whether it was necessary or overdue. The only consensus was that it worked. When the originator steps back and the conversation keeps moving, the moment has outgrown intent. Industry behavior reflected that quiet recalibration. No dramatic exits. No public alliances collapsing. Just distance. Fewer interactions. Carefully neutral captions. A noticeable reduction in proximity. In celebrity ecosystems, proximity is currency and controversy devalues it instantly. The internet noticed every absence, every unfollow, every carefully worded non-statement, reading tea leaves like it was a second language, the disturbing claims that had been referenced earlier still undefined, still unconfirmed hovered like background noise. They weren't shouted anymore. They didn't need to be. Their power came from implication, not detail. People debated whether implication without specificity is more dangerous than direct accusation. One side said implication poisons without accountability. The other said implication exists because direct statements are often impossible in systems built to protect power. The argument never resolved, and that unresolved tension kept the story alive. What set in next was fatigue, not boredom, but unease. The joke still landed, but heavier. The memes still circulated, but with an edge. Viewers weren't asking, "What's next?" as much as, "Where does this go?" Because when stories reach this phase, they stop feeling like entertainment and start feeling like a test of influence, of silence, of how long a narrative can hang without confirmation. Jay-Z's legacy didn't collapse here. It reframed, not as exposed, not as accused, but as open to examination in a way it hadn't been for a while. That reframing matters. Legacy relies on narrative control, and narrative control weakens when enough people start asking the same questions. Even if those questions don't have answers yet, the wider industry felt implicated, whether fairly or not. Conversations expanded beyond individuals to systems. Who gets shielded? Who gets scrutinized? Why some stories fade while others resurface? Why silence works until it provokes? This stopped being about two names and became a commentary on how celebrity power actually functions behind the scenes. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Nothing about this was going to end cleanly. There wouldn't be a tidy statement that tied everything together. No dramatic reveal that confirmed or denied everything at once. Just a lingering context that attaches itself to future appearances, future interviews, future headlines. Every time a similar question surfaces, the internet won't treat it as new. It'll treat it as confirmation that something unresolved is still in the air. That's the real consequence, not collapse, not cancellation. But context changes how people listen, how they watch, how they interpret silence. Every unrelated headline risks getting folded into a narrative that didn't exist this loudly before. That's how reputations shift now by accumulation, not explosion. 0.50 cent moved on publicly, as he always does. New jokes elsewhere, new posts.
New chaos.
But the imprint remained. Because once you remind the internet where to look, you don't have to keep pointing. It remembers. It waits. It connects dots when the moment presents itself. The story dispersed instead of ending. It settled into comment sections, into reaction videos saved for later, into group chats that reopen whenever a new clip drops. It became background noise in celebrity discourse, always there, ready to resurface when the next trigger appears, and that's what makes moments like this powerful. You don't need to prove anything to change the temperature. You just need to introduce enough doubt that certainty feels irresponsible. The internet thrives in that gray space because gray invites participation. Everyone gets to fill in their own version. This wasn't a reckoning yet. It was a recalibration. Reminder that no amount of success permanently outruns scrutiny. That silence can protect until it provokes. That implication, when timed correctly, can be more disruptive than accusation. And that once a spotlight is redirected upward, it doesn't always return to where it came from. The headlines will move on. Something louder will replace this moment. The cycle will continue, because it always does. The cycle will continue, because it always does. And just like that, a few questions turned into a full-scale industry stare-down. No court filings. No signed statements. Just timing, implication, and the internet doing what it does best, turning silence into pressure. If you made it this far, congratulations. You didn't just watch a story unfold. You watched how power gets tested without anyone ever saying too much. Now it's your turn. Do you think 50 Cent is forcing conversations the industry keeps dodging? Or is this elite-level chess designed to stir chaos and control the narrative? Is Jay-Z's silence confidence? Or strategy? Drop your real take in the comments. Not the safe one. Not the polite one. The honest one. Because the comment section is where the real investigation happens. If this video made you pause, rewind, or say, hold on, even once, smash that like button like it owes you money. Hit it the same way the internet hits speculation, fast, loud, and without hesitation. And if you're not subscribed yet, fix that immediately. Stories like this don't come with press releases, and we break them down every time the spotlight moves where it's not supposed to be. Turn on notifications too, because controversy doesn't schedule itself. One